The year was 2139, and Earth was at peace. Cities glowed with silver towers, skies carried silent aircraft, and oceans sparkled under floating farms. Humanity had learned to survive its old wars, its hunger, its chaos. For the first time in centuries, people believed the future was safe. Children grew without fear of bombs. Nations traded knowledge instead of weapons. But peace has a strange weakness. It makes people believe danger will never return. And when the danger came, it did not arrive slowly. It fell on Earth in a single moment, like a shadow covering the sun. It began with a signal. At first, scientists thought it was nothing, just another radio burst from deep space. But then the signal grew. It repeated. It carried structure, rhythm, meaning. Satellites across the solar system caught the same pulse, a voice hidden in the noise of the universe. The world's observatories listened. And then, one night, across every screen, every device, every channel, phones, televisions, tablets, even smart glass windows, the signal revealed itself. A voice spoke. It was not human. The sound was deep, layered, metallic. It scraped through speakers like claws against steel. The words were clear, but they carried no warmth, no life, no mercy. Humans of Earth, you are known. You are seen. You are weak. Across living rooms and crowded streets, people froze. The world stopped breathing. The voice continued. We are the Kale. We travel the stars. We crush resistance. We erase worlds. You cannot stand against us. You cannot win. The image changed. Screens showed black shapes, enormous ships sliding across the darkness of space. They blotted out the stars, swallowing light with their bulk. Each ship was longer than a city, wide as a continent, bristling with weapons whose glow made Earth's satellites look like toys. The voice thundered again. Kneel, and we may spare fragments of your kind. Resist, and you will be ash beneath our fire. Then silence. No music, no noise, no static. Just silence. And in that silence, Earth trembled. Leaders across nations scrambled. War councils lit up in underground bunkers. Presidents, generals, and scientists argued in desperate voices. We are not ready. Our fleets are too small. Our weapons are useless against that scale. Panic spread faster than reason. But not only leaders heard the message. Everyone had. In kitchens, mothers pulled their children close. In schools, teachers tried to comfort crying students. In the streets, strangers stared at the sky as if waiting for fire to fall. Fear crawled into every home. And then came the images, the satellites that had managed to catch more detail. From the edge of the solar system, dark shapes drifted closer, moving with patient power. The alien fleet. The Kale. Their ships crossed the void like predators stalking prey. For weeks, the voice returned. Always the same message. Always the same threat. You cannot win. Some leaders considered surrender. If we kneel, they argued, maybe some of us will live. Others shouted for defense, though they knew the truth. Humanity's fleets were small, its technology primitive compared to what had been shown. Ordinary people watched in despair. On every channel, experts repeated the same words. We are too weak. We are too late. We are unprepared. Fear turned into hopelessness. Cities grew quiet. Streets emptied at night. Families whispered about escape, though there was nowhere to run. There was no second Earth. But even in despair, a spark survived. In an underground base hidden beneath the Rocky Mountains, a group of soldiers sat in silence. Their commander, a scarred veteran of old wars, rose to his feet. He stared at the flickering screen showing the alien ships. Then he spoke, not to the room, but to history. They think we are weak. They think fear will break us. But fear does not break humanity. It makes us fight harder. One soldier whispered, but we cannot win. The commander's voice hardened. Then we will prove them wrong. Those words spread. Quietly at first. Carried by soldiers, scientists, workers. Shared in whispers, in secret networks, in messages scratched onto walls. Soon the phrase moved like fire through dry grass. We will prove them wrong. Yet as the words spread, the danger grew. The Kale fleet was no longer distant shadows. They were near. Telescopes showed their sharp outlines now. Vast ships crawling past Jupiter, glowing with power. Astronomers measured their size, their speed. The data was terrifying. Each Kale ship was a city of weapons. Their engines burned with energy that made human fusion reactors look like candles. Their weapons could tear moons apart. And they were moving closer every day. The scientists gave humanity a number. 47 days. That was all. The fear deepened. On the streets of Shanghai, people watched holographic news feeds showing the alien fleet's advance. In New York, riots broke out as citizens demanded answers. In London, churches filled with prayers. In Delhi, families gathered to prepare for the unthinkable. Everywhere, the same question burned. What could Earth possibly do? Meanwhile, in space, astronauts aboard the orbital stations looked out in silence. Beyond the black horizon, past the glittering stars, faint shadows moved. At first, they looked like distant mountains. But mountains do not move. Mountains do not glow. The astronauts sent their images back to Earth. The world saw them. The Kale were coming. At night, children asked their parents, "Will we die?" Parents had no answer. Some lied. Some stayed silent. Some wept. In parliaments and councils, leaders argued. Should humanity fight? Should it kneel? Should it beg for mercy? But the Kale never spoke of mercy. Only conquest. Only ash. And so the whispers of resistance grew louder. The world began to divide. On one side, fear. On the other, defiance. In a small town in Brazil, a mechanic whispered to his son, "They may have ships, but we have courage." In a frozen base in Siberia, a scientist told her team, "We may not win, but we will fight." In the deserts of Africa, young recruits painted words on steel walls, "Prove them wrong." It was no longer a whisper. It was a movement. But the Kale fleet kept coming. The closer they came, the larger they appeared in the night sky. At first, only scientists could see them. Then, through telescopes, ordinary people could. Then, with naked eyes, faint black dots against the stars. And one night, in a clear desert sky, a farmer looked up and saw something impossible. The stars disappeared. A massive shadow slid across the heavens, blocking constellations that had burned for millions of years. It was not a cloud. It was not the moon. It was a Kale warship. Panic surged again. Crowds filled streets, pointing at the night sky. News channels broadcast the images, colossal alien machines drifting into the inner solar system. The Kale voice returned, louder than ever. "Humans of Earth. The time ends. Your weakness ends. Kneel, or be destroyed." This time, there was no silence after. The voice lingered, echoing in every human mind like a curse. But deep in the chaos, a single message answered. It came from a hidden channel, carried on old military frequencies. It was short. It was simple. It was human. "We will not kneel." And so the first spark of defiance was born. The world still shook with fear. The Kale fleet still darkened the stars. But for the first time since the warning began, Earth felt something new, something small, fragile, but burning. Hope. The world did not sleep. After the alien warning, Earth remained wrapped in fear. Cities that once sparkled with light now dimmed their towers. Skies that once carried music now hummed with silence. And yet, beneath that silence, something moved. It was not surrender. It was preparation. The hidden resolve. In the halls of government, many argued for surrender. But in the hidden corners of Earth, away from cameras and speeches, plans were already unfolding. Deep beneath mountains, Inside old mines, and under frozen wastelands, engineers and soldiers gathered. They carried no banners, no songs, no promises. They carried tools, metal, and determination. The world had 47 days. 47 days to turn weakness into strength. Underground labs. In Colorado, an abandoned military bunker lit up with life. Generators roared, welding sparks danced, and machines began to rise. Scientists worked on stolen alien fragments, pieces of drones that had crashed on Earth decades ago, long dismissed as myths. Now, those fragments became blueprints. A young engineer named Kira held up a jagged shard of black alloy. It absorbed light, impossible to scratch. She whispered, "This is not human metal. But maybe it can serve human hands." Around her, teams sketched weapons that did not exist yesterday. Railguns powered by stolen Kale cores. Drones guided by human instinct. Armor that could bend energy. Factories in silence. In the deserts of Africa, great hangars opened at night. Inside, old aircraft factories reawakened. Instead of planes, they built war machines never seen before. Not huge ships. Humanity had no time for that. Instead, they built small, fast vessels. Hunters, not giants. Ships that could hide in asteroid belts, dart through debris, strike from shadows. The Kale had strength. Humanity would answer with speed. Training the few. Soldiers gathered in abandoned cities to train. They marched through empty streets, learning to fight in silence. They learned not to match the Kale head-on, but to strike unexpectedly, like wolves against a lion. Veterans of old wars returned to teach the young. They carried scars, but also knowledge. "Do not fear their size," one commander told recruits. "Even giants bleed. Even mountains can fall." The call of sacrifice. Across the world, ordinary people joined the silent effort. Farmers gave up fuel for machines. Workers built parts without asking what they were for. Students coded programs to confuse alien scanners. One boy in Mumbai hacked into satellites, feeding false signals to the Kale fleet. His last words to his family were simple. "If they never see us coming, maybe you'll live." He never returned home. Whispers of unity. For centuries, nations had been divided by borders and flags. But the Kale made borders meaningless. For the first time in history, humanity began to act as one. Russian submarines carried supplies to American bases. Japanese engineers shared designs with Brazilian welders. African miners sent rare minerals to European labs. No one asked for credit. No one asked for reward. They all worked for survival. Close calls. But the Kale were not blind. Their drones scanned Earth skies, black machines like crows circling above. They searched for signs of resistance. In Siberia, one drone descended too close. Its red eye pierced the snow, scanning, scanning. Soldiers hid under frozen camouflage, barely breathing. At the last moment, a sniper fired. The drone shattered into burning fragments, its scream echoing across the tundra. The soldiers said nothing. They buried the wreckage in silence and returned to work. Hope in the shadows. Day by day, the preparations grew. The moon's dark side became a fortress, hidden from alien eyes. Mars colonies built secret cannons under their dust storms. Old satellites were armed with explosives, waiting to fall like daggers from the sky. And still, the phrase spread. "We will prove them wrong." Children whispered it before sleeping. Soldiers carved it onto steel walls. Pilots painted it on their helmets. It was not just a phrase anymore. It was humanity's heartbeat. The coming storm. But time did not slow. Astronomers watched in dread as the Kale fleet crossed Saturn. Their ships glowed brighter now, engines burning like suns. They were no longer distant shadows. They were close, too close. Every calculation screamed the same truth. The fleet would reach Earth's orbit in less than 3 weeks. In the darkness of space, Kale ships drifted forward. On Earth, In silence, humans prepared. The days passed, and the Kale fleet grew larger in the night sky. To anyone who looked up, the stars seemed fewer now. Black shadows blocked them, drifting closer with every heartbeat. Humanity had prepared in silence. Factories had worked through the night. Soldiers had trained in ruined cities. Engineers had built weapons from scraps and dreams. But no one knew if it would be enough. The moment of truth came near Mars. The stillness before battle. On a quiet morning, telescopes caught the first flashes. Alien engines burned bright beyond the red planet. Their ships formed a wall of black steel, sharp and endless. Across Earth, people held their breath. Screens everywhere showed the same image, the Kale advancing. And in secret bases, human commanders spoke the words they had been waiting to say. It begins. The Kale arrogance. From the Kale fleet, a new broadcast thundered. Humans, you dare resist? You dare raise your hand against the Kale? This is no war. This is execution. Their voices shook the channels, deep and cold. They showed images of their weapons. Cannons that could melt moons, shields that could crush fleets. The message ended with laughter. Metallic, cruel laughter. But humans did not laugh. They answered with silence, with fire waiting to be unleashed. The hidden fleet. Near Mars, hidden behind rocks and dust, humanity's small fleet waited. It was not grand. No shining battleships, no endless armadas. Only a few dozen ships, built in secret, tiny compared to the Kale giants. Their hulls were patched with scavenged metal, their weapons untested, their engines loud and fragile. But their pilots carried something no alien could measure: desperation. They were not fighting for conquest. They were fighting for survival. The first strike. The Kale moved closer, their ships glowing with energy. They did not even bother to form defense lines. To them, humanity was nothing more than dust waiting for fire. And so, humanity struck. From behind Mars's shadow, hidden cannons roared. Asteroids that had floated for millions of years were suddenly pushed, redirected, hurled into space like spears. The first asteroid slammed into a Kale cruiser. For the first time in centuries, Kale armor cracked. The second asteroid shattered another ship's shields, ripping metal apart. The universe itself seemed to pause. The Kale had been hit. The counter-fire. But the Kale were not stunned for long. Their cannons blazed, beams of pure energy slicing through the void. One human ship exploded instantly, then another. Pilots screamed into radios as fire swallowed them whole. The human fleet was small, fragile. Each loss tore a hole in the resistance. But still they fought. Guerrilla in space. Human ships darted between rocks, weaving through debris. They launched old satellites, now turned into bombs, which slammed into Kale hulls with sudden bursts of fire. One pilot, trapped and surrounded, ignited his own engines and rammed his ship into an enemy cruiser. His sacrifice tore the alien vessel in half. The Kale howled with rage. This was no execution. This was war. The moment of victory. Then came the strike that changed everything. From the surface of Phobos, Mars's small moon, humanity had hidden its deadliest weapon, a railgun the size of a mountain. It had been built in secret, welded together by hundreds of workers who never knew if it would fire. Now, it fired. A rod of steel, simple and brutal, shot across the void at impossible speed. It pierced the Kale flagship's shield. It tore through the ship's heart. For the first time in history, a Kale warship exploded. The fire lit up the red planet, a new star burning in the Martian sky. Shock across the stars. On Earth, people screamed, not in fear, but in hope. Streets filled with cheers. Children hugged their parents. For the first time, humanity had struck back. The Kale could bleed. The impossible had happened. The fury of the Kale. But victory was not free. The Kale roared with fury. Their fleet pulled back, but not in defeat. They had lost one ship, but dozens more remained. Their message came again, colder than before. Humans, you have tasted your only victory. We will return. And when we do, your world will burn until nothing remains. Their ships turned, drifting back beyond Mars. But they were not gone. They were waiting. Preparing. The aftermath. Humanity's fleet limped back to hidden bases. Many ships were gone, many pilots lost. The survivors carried scars and silence. But they also carried something new. Proof. The Kale were not invincible. And that proof spread faster than fear. Across every continent, people whispered it, shouted it, believed it. They can be beaten. For the first time in history, humanity had struck the Kale. One alien warship, shattered into fire near Mars, gave Earth a new heartbeat. Across cities, people cheered. Across villages, children sang. Across bases, soldiers raised their fists. But hope is dangerous. The Kale had never lost before. And what humanity called victory, the Kale called insult. The silence before the storm. For 2 weeks, the alien fleet was quiet. They retreated beyond Mars, their shadows no longer visible in the night sky. Humanity dared to believe the impossible. Maybe they will not return. Maybe they fear us now. But scientists warned the truth. The Kale were not gone. They were gathering, preparing. And when they came back, they would come with fire. The return of darkness. The warning came at dawn. Telescopes caught the first signs, dozens of new ships entering the solar system. Larger, heavier, deadlier than before. Within hours, the night sky filled again with black shapes. The Kale had returned, not with a fleet, but with an armada. Their message echoed across every channel. Humans, you defied us. You struck us. You will suffer. The threat was not empty. The first strikes. The Kale descended without mercy. Lasers cut through orbiting satellites. Human stations around the moon burned into dust. Whole fleets were erased in moments. Then, the cities fell. New York, Shanghai, Lagos, Moscow. Fire rained from the sky. Buildings melted like wax. Millions vanished in seconds. On the ground, people ran, but there was nowhere to run. The Kale did not attack soldiers alone. They attacked humanity itself. The desperation. Command centers shook with voices. We must strike back. Our weapons are too weak. We cannot win like this. But even as leaders argued, ordinary people acted. Firefighters pulled survivors from rubble. Doctors worked in tunnels under burning streets. Parents shielded children with their own bodies. And in every shadow, the words still moved like breath. Prove them wrong. The commander's sacrifice. In orbit, the battle raged. Human ships darted like insects, but the Kale swatted them down. One by one, the fleet crumbled. But then came the moment. Commander Rail, pilot of the old flagship Resolute, saw the chance. A Kale cruiser loomed above, its shields weakened from asteroid strikes. His ship was crippled, engines failing, weapons gone. His crew begged him to retreat. But Rail only whispered, "If we run, Earth dies." He turned the Resolute toward the cruiser. Engines screamed, metal tore, alarms blared. The crew had seconds to escape in pods. Many refused to leave. And then, in one final burst, the Resolute slammed into the alien ship. The explosion lit the dark like a second sun. Both ships vanished in fire. On Earth, people saw the light. They knew what it meant. Sacrifice. The cost of hope. But sacrifice did not erase the truth. Humanity bled. Millions were gone. Cities burned. Oceans boiled where Kale fire struck. For every small victory, 10 losses followed. And yet, humanity did not kneel. Children still whispered the words before sleep. Soldiers carved them into walls of bunkers. Engineers welded them into the hulls of ships. We will not kneel. The Kale thought fire would break Earth. Instead, fire only hardened it. The Kale fury. The Kale spoke once more. Your world will burn until nothing remains. There is no victory for you. But their voices no longer carried the same weight. Humanity had seen them bleed. Humanity had seen them burn. And humanity whispered back, unseen, unheard. Not yet. Not ever. The cliffhanger. The battle was far from over. The Kale still filled the sky. Their armada still glowed with endless power. Humanity was battered, bleeding, cornered. But it was not broken. In the ashes of ruined cities, survivors rose. In the silence of orbit, soldiers prepared. In hidden bases, scientists worked faster than ever. The cost of hope was high. But hope still lived. And when the Kale came again, humanity would be waiting. The earth was scarred. Great cities were nothing but ash. Oceans still smoked where alien fire had fallen. The skies were crowded with debris of shattered ships, both human and Kale. But humanity had not knelt. They had suffered. They had lost millions. They had buried heroes. But their spirit still burned. And now, the moment had come. The last weapon. 4 months, in silence, engineers had worked on the moon's dark side. Hidden from Kale eyes, they had built something impossible, a cannon the size of a mountain. It was not elegant. It was not beautiful. It was raw power. An electromagnetic pulse weapon, large enough to strike across space, strong enough to blind even Kale technology. The scientists who built it called it the Dawn. They knew it could only fire once. And that once had to be enough. The Kale advance. The Kale armada approached Earth, black shadows blotting out the stars. Their numbers seemed endless. Their weapons glowed with hunger. The message came again, cold and merciless. Humans, you have wasted our patience. This ends tonight. And the skies lit up. Kale fire rained down. Orbiting stations burned. Human fleets scrambled, outnumbered, outgunned. The end seemed certain. The order. In the moonbase, the final command was spoken. Fire the Dawn. Engines roared. Power surged. The cannon charged with energy enough to shake the ground beneath lunar craters. And then, with a soundless scream, it fired. The light that changed everything. The blast was not flame. It was not metal. It was pure energy, invisible to the eye, unstoppable in its reach. It rolled across the void like a storm. Kale shields flickered. Engines died. Cannons fell silent. One by one, the colossal ships froze in place, trapped in the black sea of space. For the first time, the Kale were powerless. The human counterattack. The signal went out. Now. Every human ship, every hidden satellite, every cannon that still worked unleashed its fury. Small fighters darted between frozen Kale warships, planting charges, tearing through their weak spots. Old satellites dropped from orbit like falling knives, smashing into alien hulls. On the ground, missile bases fired their last rockets into the sky, each one finding its mark. Kale ships, once untouchable, began to fall. Sacrifice in the fire. But even disabled, the Kale were dangerous. Some ships reignited, firing blindly. Many human vessels were lost in the chaos. Pilots gave their lives ramming into alien giants. Engineers on dying ships stayed behind to keep weapons firing until the last second. Every sacrifice carved another wound into the Kale. And slowly, impossibly, the tide turned. The fall of giants. One by one, the Kale warships fell. The great armada that had crossed the stars, that had crushed countless civilizations, that had called humanity weak, was broken. The last Kale ship turned and fled into the void, its engine sparking, its voice silent. For the first time in their history, the Kale had been defeated. By Earth. By humanity. The silence after. The skies grew quiet. The fire faded. Only wreckage remained, drifting in orbit like scars across the heavens. On Earth, Survivors poured into the streets. They cried, they laughed, they hugged strangers. The war was not without cost. Cities were gone. Families were broken. Heroes had fallen. But humanity was alive. And alive meant victory. The final words. In the ruins of New York, a child looked up at the sky and asked, "Did we win?" A soldier knelt beside her, his face scarred, his eyes tired. He pointed to the stars, where alien wrecks still burned. "Yes," he said softly, "we won." And across the world, the words echoed. They said we couldn't win a space war. But we proved them wrong.